East Hampton Town Board, we are live.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the East Hampton Town Work Session of April 9th, 2024. Carol, if you could please read the roll call.
Councilmember Flood. Councilmember Lees.
Present.
Councilmember Rogers.
Present.
Present.
Supervisor Burkham.
Present. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so for today's work session, we're going to start with the public portion, and we ask that you kindly keep your comments to 3 minutes. And then we have 4 topics to discuss. The first is the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee is going to be making grant recommendations for round 1 of 2024, and that's Melissa Winslow and Billy Hajak. Then Eric Shantz will be doing 2 presentations, the first senior housing permitted density discussion, and then the community development block grant project status and budget modifications. And then lastly, the Litter Action Committee is going to be giving a presentation and recapping 2023 and sharing with us their plans for 2024. Then we'll have liaison reports followed by resolutions. So let's start with public comment, and the first person signed up is Katie Plum. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Kathy, and
You just bring that down a little bit. That arm is
town board
perfect.
members and audience. I'm Katie Plum, and I have been organizing the East Hampton Farmers Market since 2003. And I am formally asking you to consider your special event fees that have been recently announced to us as being out of character of understanding what the farmers market is. It's not 16 events, it's 1 event. And just to give a kind of a reference point, I noticed the other day when I was here that you passed a resolution saving some agricultural land for farmers. And in the farmers markets, there are some young farmers, East Hampton farmers, that are, want to place to directly sell their goods. And there are also other little entrepreneurs. I talked to one this morning, and around here, they're little people. That's part of the farmers market, is to provide a place for someone could invent a product here and sell it directly to customers and get their feedback and everything. It's a very important part of the farmers market process. And also the piece that's community-oriented, the people getting together, which is what we didn't have during those COVID years, what we used to have previously. So that's part of it too. And also that I ask you for your consideration to the fact that Southampton Town charges of a $50 permit fee for the application. Sag Harbor Farmers Market charges a $25 fee. East Hampton Village charged us $500 as a security deposit and gave it back to us. And so it seems to me that East Hampton, knowing that you are agriculturally aligned, and we love our farm stands, there's no question about that, but that the East Hampton Farmers Market and what it does to the community, and the community bringing people together and providing a space for the young entrepreneurs to have a direct access to the customer, I think is very important. And with that, I humbly ask that you rescind your $2,000 fee for this year until there's maybe some wiser angel comes and understanding that there's another aspect to farmers markets that's providing in East Hampton, and it should be acknowledged. And it has. We never paid any fees to East Hampton before, since we began in 2003. So I'm just asking you to revisit that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Is there anyone else here that would like to address the board? Jason, is there someone on the line that would like to talk?
Yes,
address the
absolutely.
board?
Let me just go and start this. Okay, hello, caller ending 7623. You're on the air.
thank you very much. Hello, this is Martin Drew. How are you guys today?
Well, Martin, thank you.
Well, Ms. Gonzalez, first of all, I just want to welcome you as our new supervisor, so congratulations on that. I just had a couple of questions of you, if you didn't mind, regarding a situation in Springs that's ongoing for 3 years now at the, I guess the property's called Maidstone Acres, but it's also known as Rita Cantina. And I was just hoping to, I guess, get an update on where you guys are with this Article 78 that we keep hearing about, because apparently for 3 years now, there's been 30 violations noted. I don't think any of which have been adjudicated, because we are in this continuing process of one adjournment or postponement after the other, while they continue to, I guess, just do what they want while they're trying to fight you guys in Miss Ann Glennon's determination a while back, where she, I guess, told the owners that they were out of compliance because they had too many uses on site. And now that I'm reviewing that determination, I'm finding out that not only do they have 3 uses on site, but there's also a 4th use with the downstairs apartment. So apparently they have a residence, a single-family residence, an apartment, a restaurant that's being used by 3 different businesses, and there's not a parking space to speak of down there. So it's become a big problem for our neighborhood. So we're just wondering if you could comment on that.
Martin, you could give the town attorneys a call, and town attorney Rob Connolly can talk you through that.
Oh, I've already done that before I called you, ma'am. I got that one out of the way. I want an answer from you, please. You're our supervisor. You're supposed to know what's going on, and I would think you've had your own dialogue with Mr. Connolly about that. So if you could give us your opinion on what's going on, especially with the Article 78 situation, and I guess no one's ability on the town board to put forward a resolution that would start talking to the parking issues. I mean, our adjoining neighborhood in Clearwater Beach has an entryway to that facility, and there's no parking on both sides of the road. So I don't know why we would expect anything less. And when I speak to the chief, that being Chief Solo, he's been helpful in trying to put temporary signs down there. But the reality is no one's really complying to that stuff, the signage, and he tells me that he's got no jurisdiction because it's not really written into law with the no parking signage. So I would like to know if Mr. Piedmont, I guess our New Springs liaison, has any intention of moving forward with a resolution that would ask you guys to put no parking signs on either side of the road, because we have also that ongoing issue at number 25 Maidstone Park Road, where they've decided to use that vacant residential lot as a de facto parking lot. And they're doing the same thing there that they did at the Jackson Pollock House, where they're parking perpendicular to the road, creating pedestrian and traffic problems. And quite frankly, it's adverse to New York State traffic law. So I've had to call the New York State troopers to ask their opinion on that. So I'm in dialogue with Mr. Lynch about that. But apparently everyone wants to lean on the fact that it's just been going on pre-existing non-conforming. But I wanted to clarify for the record that pre-existing uses that were non-conforming down at that location were of a general store. There was never a restaurant there to begin with, that everyone wants to rely on these pre-existing non-conforming statements. The law would tell us that there's supposed to be so many parking spots per so many seats of dining, and I think the last time we did a tally, they need like 40 parking spaces, which they're never going to have. So we're really curious to know if the town of East Hampton has opened any dialogue about buying this facility with the CPF funds and taking it down. Not unlike you did my grandfather's business across the street that I tried desperately to get back from the family that had it, and they only had one septic issue. Now we're seeing 7 and 9 tanks trying to be stuffed into what used to be the vacant lot next door that got conveniently merged in some commercial footprint. And apparently nobody's really speaking to the parking issue. So it seems to be, I don't know. I don't know who's pointing the finger at who, but it doesn't seem that anything's really happening with this. And it's been 3 years now that this is ongoing. So we need some help down here. Our quality of life is suffering, and the character of our neighborhood is being destroyed by this greedy commercial use that everyone wants to tell us is pre-existing non-conforming. I'd like to tell you, my mother would tell you, that in the 75 years she's in the neighborhood, the pre-existing non-conforming use was a general store where people came, got their goods and services, and left. They're not sitting around for 3 and 5 hours sucking down tequila and oysters. without any parking spaces. So please, if you could comment, that would be appreciated.
Martin, this is public comment, so if we can have this conversation offline. And thank you for calling in today. Jason, do we have anyone else that would like to address the
For
board?
the record, please. For the record. I don't participate to not be heard, so please make that all for the record comments, please.
Martin, I'll repeat it again. This is public portion where we take public comment. This is not a debate or a discussion. We're happy to have these conversations with you offline.
Well, I'm going to do that in writing, please, because I'm getting tired of having fruitless dialogue. So I'll make sure I'll put something in writing to you that you could reply to in writing then, if we're going to go that way. I thought public comments demanded an answer, but I guess I'm mistaken. My apologies. So I'll send you something in writing, ma'am, and maybe you can reply to it as well in writing. That would be great.
Sounds good. Thank you, Martin. Jason, do
All
we
right,
have
thank you for
anyone
taking my
else that would
call.
like to address the board?
We have no other callers on the line.
Okay, well, I'll ask again, is there anyone else in the main meeting room that would like to address the board? Okay, so we'll move on to topics. First up is the presentation from Melissa Winslow and Billy Hajak for the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee's grant recommendations. Welcome, Melissa and Billy.
Sure. Yeah.
Good morning. So I'm Melissa Winslow, Principal Environmental Analyst from the town's Natural Resources Department, and I'm here with Billy Hajak, who is the chair of our CPF Water Quality Committee. So we're here to make the recommendations on behalf of the committee for the first round of the 2024 request for applications. This is a biannual process developed by the town for the Water Quality Committee to receive applications for water quality improvement projects with sufficient detail in order to review, score, and prioritize them for funding. We kicked this process off in 2019. So between 2019 and 2023, we have awarded 41 different projects, a little less than $8 million in grant funding. So this first round, we issued in December 15th, 2023, and was due February 15th, 2024. We had approximately $1.5 million earmarked as available funding for this round. The town subcommittee and the Water Quality Committee members conducted a thorough review of all 8 applications that we received. Applications were ranked based on criteria for water quality, benefits, cost, maintenance and monitoring, and longevity of the project, which I'll get into a little bit more detail on the next slide. Of the 8 applications, the Water Quality Committee is recommending 5 for grant awards today. 1 project was put on hold and 2 are not being recommended. So there was a little bit of change made for the 2024 scoring criteria in order to streamline the process for the Water Quality Committee to make these recommendations. So we modified the ranking criteria to shift more weight to the water quality components to put an emphasis on getting projects with the greatest improvements to stand out. So it's now 50% of the score is water quality improvement criteria. We added point definition to prioritize certain areas. So there's heavier weight on proximity to priority water bodies through the groundwater travel time. And certain project types, so wastewater treatment improvements, which is a great source reduction, has a heavier weight than, say, a stormwater abatement project. That's still a source reduction, but a little bit less priority than wastewater. So we also included a criteria for projects being proposed to remedy a failure or emergency situation, which is contributing to a known water quality issue. Projects required by order of consent, stipulation agreement, or order of a court are still considered ineligible, as they're required to complete that project within a set time frame already, so they're not eligible for funding. Projects included in a determination from an East Hampton Town Board are considered eligible but are ranked accordingly. So these voluntary projects being recommended get full points, and then if they're included in a determination, they get no points for that criteria. Other criteria still included, such as cost factors, maintenance and monitoring components, and sustainability, but they're just weighted accordingly. So this is kind of just a breakdown of all of the projects for the first round of the 2024 RFA. The 5 projects at the top are being recommended for funding. 3 of them are commercial IA upgrade projects. 1 of them is a constructed wetland treatment system wastewater treatment project, and then 1 is a eelgrass restoration pilot. The Sag Harbor Village Sewer Shed L was put on hold until additional information is provided, and I'll get into a little bit more detail later on that. And then 2 projects are not being recommended.
Good morning, Supervisor, members of the board. Billy Hayjack, and I'm going to present Melissa and I will just switch back and forth for projects to make it easier. So the first recommendation is for a commercial septic upgrade. It's a restaurant site located in Amagansett. It's 177 Main Street. The board is familiar with this property, obviously pretty familiar with it, but it was recommended and awarded previously. There was a change in ownership which required them to make a new application, and it's for a septic system upgrade for a restaurant facility, as I indicated. The committee is recommending it with a score of 76 out of 100. The eligible costs for the project are a little over $100,000. The total estimate is $140,000. And this property also received, or I think is beneficial of, an easement that the town board granted to put parts of their system in the municipal parking lot. And I think I've pretty much covered it. It's good.
Billy, can I just, Chelsea, do you see where it says display options up on the top of your screen? Did you click that and just swap screen so we can get a full?
Is that better over there?
No, yeah.
There it is.
So we can get the full page.
Oh, there you go.
Out.
Great. Yeah, there's an aerial of the site location and a portion of the survey showing the sanitary system, and part of it being in the municipal parking lot.
And Billy, is it your understanding that they're looking to do this project before the season starts?
That I don't know. I'd imagine they would be coordinating this with the highway department to, I don't know if it could happen. I don't know. That's a good question for Melissa.
I think
If
they were planning on trying to get this in before the season, and just based on timing. It shouldn't take all that long to get the system installed. For example, our South Lake project, the IA system's already in the ground, as they just started this week, so it should be a pretty short turnaround just with restoration, maybe a couple extra weeks.
Thanks, Melissa. Any other questions?
No.
Great.
So the next project is from the Most Holy Trinity Church in partnership with the New York State Center for Clean Water Technology for a constructed wetland wastewater treatment system at the church. This is another reapplication from last year. They're proposing replacing the existing sanitary system with a constructed wetland to treat the 3 structures on the property, so the church, admin building, and the parish hall. The total flow is about 1,500 gallons per day. The constructed wetland uses a recirculating gravel filter bed and denitrifying polishing unit with wood chips. So the system can have applications for higher strength wastewater projects where there's currently less options available for optimal treatment, such as schools and churches that have higher strength wastewater with less dilution. So this is capable of achieving down to 0 milligrams per liter. I think they're around 5 milligrams per liter right now. This project's in the Hook Pond priority area within the 10-year groundwater travel time. This project got a 74 out of 100. Their original request was for $545,000. We removed the restoration paving costs, so the total eligible cost would be $445,000. And the Water Quality Committee is recommending funding this project based on availability of funding and potential of the technology. And this slide kind of just shows a diagram of the site showing the 3 different buildings and the schematic of how the system, if it moves forward, would be set up. It's a little more expensive based on the distance between the different buildings and trying to work it into one system. And then those are some photos of some completed constructed wetland projects a little further west on the island. Any questions on that one?
I think we'll have you go through them, and then we can
And then
go
talk
back
at the
and-
end? Okay.
The next project we're recommending is another septic upgrade. This is the Oceanside Owners or Hero Beach Club in downtown Montauk. This is an upgrade of a portion of their system that is believed to be a voluntary upgrade. It's a large flow, large capacity system, and a lot of uses on the site. So it's a large reduction, estimated to be 275 pounds of nitrogen per year. It is within the 0 to 2 year travel time to the Atlantic Ocean, and in a densely populated area of downtown Montauk. The committee gave this a score of 68 out of 100, and out of the eligible costs, we're recommending $200,000, which is the maximum cap that's possible for funding a project of this nature. And that's a map of the area. You'll see the Atlantic Ocean just to the south, and that's a very busy survey of showing what's proposed.
The next project is another commercial septic upgrade. This is from the Fort Pond Partners LLC, located at 11 South Emery Street in Montauk. It's operating as the Harvest on Fort Pond restaurant. This is located in a critical area for water quality improvements and has been a target for wastewater treatment upgrades, sitting right on Fort Pond. The property has an existing and proposed flow of 3,000 gallons per day for a 120-seat restaurant. The expected nitrogen reduction by implementing this project would be 376 pounds of total nitrogen per year. The proposed project is a hydroaction treatment system, and they would be reusing the existing leaching galleys, which are fairly new and located right in the parking lot of the site. The site is within the 0 to 2 year groundwater travel time to Fort Pond and represents a large source reduction of nitrogen to the pond. So they are eligible for 65% of their install costs, which would be capped at $200,000. So we're recommending $87,100, which would be the maximum allowable to Fort Pond Partners LLC for the installation of this system. And this just kind of shows an aerial showing the proximity to Fort Pond, and then the site plan of their project, showing all the leaching galleys. They are, in shallow groundwater, so they have to kind of spread out and have shallower leaching structures, and then the hydroaction system to the south of the site.
The next project is not sewage upgrade, which should be interesting and fun, but it's a aquatic habitat restoration project. And it's a program to restore eelgrass in Napeague Harbor.
I guess it's how you define fun.
Yeah. I think it will be for the children that are going to take part in the program. So
So I think it'll be exciting for them.
I think they'll have fun. So it's an eelgrass restoration project. As I indicated, there's some educational benefits to the program. They're going to be working with local school groups and volunteers to do outreach education, which is beneficial. And this builds off of work that's been done in Southampton and Long Island Sound. And what they're doing, the technique is actually a sort of a newer technique for eelgrass deployment, where they're going to be attaching seeds onto juvenile clams. And the clams then it'll be dispersed, and the clams will bury themselves in the substrate, and that's going to hopefully result in growth of eelgrass. It is an area of Napeague Harbor that has eelgrass growing, so we think it's a good target area to try this. And I think that's about it. That's about a good summary for it.
Kind of shows some photos of previous works that they've done in other areas, but some students kind of helping with the effort and showing the seeds attached to the clams, and then how they plan on dispersing them in Napeague Harbor with the help of the town's shellfish hatchery. So this last project, we've seen many times before. It's the sewer shed L installation project in Sag Harbor. This is the expansion of their sewer service area to the existing sewage treatment plant. This project is put on hold shortly after the application window closed for the RFA this round. Sag Harbor was notified that they received a pretty substantial grant from New York State. So they, as far as we know, are fully funded right now, and they're planning on going out to bid this spring into summer. So once they get final costs, because this has all been really based on engineering estimates, if additional funding is needed, they may come back to us with another request. But for now, this project is on hold and should be shovel-ready by this fall. And this is kind of just a diagram of the sewer service area expansion proposal and the streets and properties that will be hooked up. Next slide. So just kind of to summarize, so the Water Quality Committee is recommending 5 different projects this round with a total award recommendation of $870,660. We will be issuing the next round June 1st of this year. Sorry, I didn't change that date. So it's June 1st, 2024, and will be due August 9th, 2024 this year. So that's all we have. If we want to have any questions or any discussion on projects.
Sure. So, I mean, the next step right now is for the board to want to go through the proposals and see if we want to take them to public hearing.
Correct, yep.
Okay, so we'll start with the first one, 177 Main Street.
Sure. So
Before we do that, may I ask 2 questions?
Sure.
I have just 2 quick questions on the systems, the septic systems. When you note how much nitrogen it's going to be saving per year, do you have an estimate of the life of the system so we can get an idea of what?
We can definitely calculate that. I just calculate it based on the known
We're
per
talking at
pound
least
nitrogen
10 years at
for
least.
the flow. But yeah, so the life of each system should be 30 years, so then it would just be compounded by 30
Yeah,
years.
so that's really a significant number when you do it like that. And also, I know those systems also require yearly maintenance, and is that built in when?
So generally, the first 3 years of the operations and maintenance is included in the installation cost for the system, and then beyond that, it would be on the applicant to continue the operations and maintenance, which would be required by the health department.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Who requires that
Yep.
the maintenance is kept going? All right, thank you. That's it. That's all my questions. Thank you.
So as far as 177 Main Street has been in the past, I recuse myself from that conversation and vote as I'm a neighboring property owner.
Okay. So is the,
Yeah, I certainly favor the 177 Main Street project. I think it's pretty cut and dry. The recommendation is clear. I support it.
I do as well. It's a failing septic system, and I think that's one that needs to be taken care of ASAP.
okay, next up, Most Holy Trinity, the constructed wetland treatment system. Now, they brought the same application to us before, correct?
So last year, they came to us with a actually smaller project. It was only 2 of the buildings, but the Water Quality Committee kind of recommended expanding the project a little bit to encompass more of the flow from the site. Because if we're going to do it, instead of expanding later on, which would be more costly, you might as well fit as much into this project as we could. So it was, I think, just the church and the admin building originally. But this did come to the board with a recommendation last year, and I think the cost was kind of an inhibiting factor for the board.
So I still have the same feelings on that. I know it's a recommendation, but I believe that the taxpayer funding can go, particularly for a pilot program, that we should look at just the IA systems on there, installation, instead of putting in another $250,000 into the project. I think that would be actually more rewarding. This is an incentive program that we are doing here then too. So I don't believe that this pilot program is about to be installed at another location. So we haven't even seen how that $250,000 or $300,000 project's working yet. So for the town to commit another $500,000, I'm not there yet on it personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, even to say it's a pilot program, as you have in the presentation, the technology is in the experimental phase of approval with the Suffolk County Department of Health. So I would like to see how the other similar project or same experimental project work, whether it needs tweaking or whether there's additional, anything that needs to be changed on it. I think it just makes sense to take an experiment, get that one done, and then if maybe there will be improvements, maybe they need less, so that we know what will work in the next system rather than doing two at a time.
Yeah, I agree as well. I mean, I would be open to taking this to public hearing to hear what the public has to say, but my instincts are the same. I think it's exciting new technology. I hope it works. It seems to be very effective when it is working. But that's a lot of money to invest in a pilot project.
Yeah, I would like to hold back. I don't think this project is ready to go to public hearing. I would like to, like my colleague said, want to hear more from other similar projects to see how they work out.
Is the other project started?
So the other project is the Pollock Krasner House in Springs, right on Accabonac. That was funded, I believe, in 2022. So that was originally proposed to be installed October of last year, but it got delayed, so it's proposed this spring, so it's not installed yet. to my
And then
knowledge.
will there be data collection on that?
Yeah, there's pretty rigorous monitoring included.
Right. Yeah, that will be essential to knowing if that particular setup works.
Do you recall what the cost of that was?
I think it was around,
Thinking 170, but I'm taking a stab.
I can look into that further. It was definitely less than this project, though.
All right, the next up is the Hero Beach Club for $200,000.
So I'm still in favor of the Hero Beach Club. The reason why I look at it this way is that this is an incentive program. This is a location in which nearly 300 gallons of 300 pounds of nitrogen can be reduced. It's a pre-existing non-conforming location which has multiple septic systems from multiple structures. If we look at the town of East Hampton, and specifically by our critical water bodies, where the travel time is very short, and specifically Lake Montauk, there's a good many of them. And I think we should be looking to incentivize where we need to improve water quality in these subsurface water areas than to, and that's why I would support that.
Yeah, for me, it's the 0 to 2 year travel time to the Atlantic Ocean. That's determinative. Again, these are high traffic areas, high use areas in town, and that's certainly a very short travel time, so I would support this.
Yeah, I agree. I support taking it to public hearing, and I think it's a good project. I think that it's why we have the program, so I support it.
Yeah, I'm support going to public hearing. It is interesting to note that I think it's probably one of the lowest scoring projects that we've moved forward to public hearing with a 68. When you look at Sag Harbor with a 97, I mean, to give, perspective, but I would be open to hearing obviously what the public has to say. All right, so we've got the Harvest Restaurant.
I'll start, this one's a very no-brainer to me. I mean, I don't even think it's a 30-day travel time.
Yeah.
That's my non-engineering mind to it.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, even though both these locations can be similar in some ways in their geographic locations on there. The price points for design, engineering, and installation are different because of site conditions, obviously. Yes, I'm very happy for this company to come in. This is incentivizing water quality, and I think we're going to get a very good outcome here.
I have nothing to add. It is a no-brainer when you know the location.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, as do I. And in this case, they have, their total score was an 85. Okay, so then we have the Napeak Harbor eelgrass restoration pilot with the Peconic Baykeeper.
We've done a couple pilots recently. We've done kelp grass. We've done floating wetlands. I think personally, when I look at water quality projects, merging if it's a sum of money, but it's a lower sum of money compared to many of the projects we're doing, and it's a different sliver that we can go to attempt to put together. Put Humpty Dumpty back together, you want to say, and that's unfortunately what we've done with bad legacy projects, nitrogen loading through fertilization and antiquated septic systems. So I'm very interested to see how this project would come out. I really like the community outreach to the children and others there. I personally would like to add that more into all the larger projects also. There might be a child out there that would like to be an engineer at some time, maybe an environmental analyst at some time, town board member, a member of the community. And some of these projects go in are very, very interesting and novel, and might spark something. So it might be something we want to do as a program to reach out to the Hamlet's school to say, this is going in on this date. Want to do a field trip? I don't know. You see what I'm saying? You know, try to use it as a classroom. But yes, I like this. That's the long way to get to the short answer.
Yeah, I support this project. I'm happy to see this project on the list today because it is the bookend to upgrading septic systems, take care of what's already happened in our waterways, and we know they're under stress. And so this is a very positive response to that. I hope it does well.
I agree as well. I do have one question. Has this technique been used successfully elsewhere?
They are piloting this in Southampton as well, and I think they have deployed,
Long Island Sound.
and yeah, Long Island Sound.
Where, yeah.
And does the eelgrass, does the seed detach once they bury themselves in, or does it stay attached to the oyster? I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. It's just a very interesting project.
That I don't know. I couldn't say.
Well, I support it nonetheless, and I echo other board members' comments about how great it is to involve the community and the children, and it's an exciting project.
You know, we can do, Ian, maybe it's, discuss this with Barley, John Dunn.
Yeah, absolutely.
From Aquaculture, maybe we even get a presentation before, if it gets passed, and before implementation.
Yeah, great.
Supervisor, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So I guess what we'll do next steps is we'll notice these for public hearing on April 18th to be heard in May. And so we've got, it'll be 4 separate public hearings we had talked about. I think that makes it easier too for the town attorney's office and for the public. And thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you,
I'll
Billy, for
also be sending
chairing.
out just update letters to all the applicants, whether they were awarded or not, and anyone that's interested in getting a little bit more information about what was discussed with the committee and how they came to that conclusion can always reach out to me.
Beautiful. Thanks, Melissa. Okay, so next up, we have our Director of Housing, Eric Shantz, to lead a discussion on senior housing permitted density.
Hi, everyone. Eric Shantz, Director of Housing. I have a PowerPoint presentation. I actually have a slightly updated one from the one that was posted online, but I'll walk you through the changes that are in there, just updating some numbers that were included. Hopefully I got that right. Let me just check. Yep. Good. All right, so this is a discussion about changing the requirements for senior housing developments, specifically the maximum permitted density from 8 units per acre to 12 units per acre. I'd like to say right at the beginning, this is a discussion only about senior housing units. We're not talking about affordable housing units across the board. And again, this is intended to open a discussion. I certainly expect that the town board and the public may have questions about this and that there'll be additional information that's needed. But I really just want to initiate this conversation because I think this could be a good mechanism to get more senior housing that is much needed, as I'll demonstrate in the presentation, in the town. Thank you. Okay, so the town board has been working on changes recently to the town code to increase the number of affordable housing units throughout the town and address the housing crisis. I'm reiterating things that most of the town board knows. We changed the town code regarding building ADUs. One of those things is the definition of an ADU. We just talked about that recently. That's ongoing. But there were code changes to refine the permitting process. changes to make ADUs more lots eligible to build them as far as minimum lot area, changes to apartments within commercial structures, at least as far as the rules go for them, and then maybe most notably the change to permit 4 single-family residences per acre with affordable housing subdivisions. That directly led and helped facilitate the Cantwell Court affordable housing subdivision. So with some of these changes, we're waiting to see the effects of them. I'm thinking specifically of the ADUs. We haven't seen a huge rush of additional ADU applications. I'm hoping that the +1 ADU program will help change that trend and we will get more applications. But I left at the bottom there the change to 4 single-family residences per acre, because that's an effect we can see. Development is going on at 395 Panago, and again, that was a change to the permitted maximum densities in the town code, which is what I want to talk about in a different form, but same category today. So the town board should consider additional changes that would facilitate the creation of more affordable housing. And again, one of them that we think you should consider is changing the maximum permitted density for senior-only housing developments. So the town code, it's important to note that the town code currently does not differentiate between senior and non-senior housing. Both are limited to 8 units per acre as a maximum. I have the town code section there, which is from the special permit standards. But I think we all kind of know that, although I'm going to give you some numbers, that senior housing developments and senior housing units tend to have less people. Senior households have a lower number of individuals in them, you know, according to the census and most surveys that have ever been taken. They generate less traffic, and they have additionally, they have less children. They generate less children for the school district that they might happen to be in. So I'm going to go into that, all of those topics in a little bit more detail, but just wanted to highlight here that there's a big difference in the real world between a senior housing unit and a non-senior housing unit in terms of the effects they have, but our town code treats them based, you know, there literally is no differentiation in our town code. So there is a need for additional senior affordable housing, focusing on seniors. The town has an older median age than the county, the state, and the nation. Our cohort that is senior individuals, so the group, the age range, is again larger than that of the county, the state, or the nation. Maybe most importantly, the town has 3 existing senior-only housing developments, Windmill 1, Windmill 2, and St. Michael's. Those total 127 housing units. All of those are at capacity. There is no vacancy in any of those housing developments. And in contacting Windmill, Kathy Burns, who runs Windmill Development, they have a total of 460 people on their waiting list. So if you add the 127 people that are, or 127 families that are, you know, I should actually correct here, I shouldn't have said people, because in the end, these end up being families sometimes. It's not necessarily an individual. But if you add all those up, the demand is nearly 4 times greater than the supply right now. So clearly, I think there is a need for additional senior housing in the town. I don't think most people will fight me on that, but I wanted to give you some numbers to substantiate that. So if you are going to increase density of any kind, affordable housing development or just standard residential development, you need to consider the potential adverse environmental impacts. It's not only common sense, it's not only prudent planning, it's also mandated by state law and SECRA. The most notable categories that would come up would be impacts on groundwater and impacts on traffic. So with groundwater protection, the current housing density requirement in the town code, again, 8 units per acre, is based in part off of what the health department's regulations were. They are and were, I should say. Our 8 unit per acre limitation has been in effect since the 1984 comprehensive plan, and again, was designed to mirror what the health department would allow. What you see here, sort of in the 2 columns here, are our town code, which again does not differentiate between non-senior and senior-only apartments. The maximum is 8 units per acre. But about 10 years ago, I don't have the exact date, the health department, which previously had both of those at 8 units per acre as the maximum, decided to lower the anticipated generated sanitary flow for senior units, and now they permit up to 12 units per acre. So basically, right now, the town's limitation of 8 units per acre restricts beyond what the health department would otherwise permit on a property, which would be 12 units per acre. Now, with all of this, keep in mind that this is assuming no sewage treatment. Most large-scale affordable housing developments, once you get over 20 units, 25 units, the health department is going to mandate sewage treatment. So, you know, when we're considering the impacts on groundwater, first of all, the health department says that there is no inherent, adverse impact to groundwater at senior units at a density of 12 units per acre. But really, this conversation is largely moot it definitely is when sewage treatment is provided, because in that case, you're not dealing with density loading of sanitary effluent going directly into the ground and eventually to groundwater. It's being treated, it's coming out. You know, as everybody says, you could drink it, but I wouldn't want to. But, this sort of becomes moot when you have sewage treatment. But it's worth mentioning. So more importantly, or more impactful, as a result of increasing housing density, would be the impacts on traffic. And you really have sort of two subcategories. It's estimated traffic and then real-world traffic, examples that we can see from existing housing developments. But focusing on estimated for now, the town board knows that a lot of land development projects, make sense whenever there's a land use that's anticipated to generate any kind of significant amount of traffic, requires a traffic study. Now, those include a number of datum impacts on intersections, but maybe the most focused on is the increased number of generated vehicular trips. The industry standard for estimating that impact is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or ITE, Trip Generation Manual. That basically estimates the number of vehicular trips you're going to get based on a land use and the intensity of that use. So, for example, they might say you'll get 5 vehicular trips per day for every square feet of retail. It's not actually that, but, and then if you're proposing a 2,000 square foot retail store, you do the multiplication, you say 10,000 vehicular trips. Obviously, that's not anywhere near correct, just using easy numbers. But if you look at some examples, and I apologize that when I prepared this PowerPoint and it was posted online, I only had access to the 7th edition of the Trip Generation Manual, which is quite outdated. I did know, though, that these land uses, the 3 of them here that I gave you examples, it hasn't changed much. But I did update this, and you can see in green, those are the updated numbers that are the current, most recent version of that manual, which is the 11th edition. You'll see that there's not really much change there for those land uses. But that wasn't even really the point, the specific numbers. It was more to show you the ratio and the spread between these different land uses. So you can see single-family residences are anticipated to generate about 10 vehicular trips per home per day. Apartments that are within multifamily apartment complexes are a little bit less, but they do generate traffic at a greater rate than senior housing units. And you see on the, the bottom land use there is senior housing units. And you can see that they're a quarter of what a single family residence would be anticipated to generate, a half, maybe a little bit more than a standard apartment. So clearly, at least in this industry standard method of determining generated traffic, basically there is an agreement, and it is actually helpful to show the 7th edition because that was about 20 years ago. You can see that in the years that this Institute of Transportation Engineers has been updating their numbers, they haven't seen a significant change in this. And these are pretty ubiquitous land uses, so you're not going to see a lot of new studies that are going to change these numbers too much, which is actually why I wasn't hesitant to give you the numbers for the 7th edition of the manual, because I knew that they hadn't changed. But I did want to give you what the current numbers are. So that's how you estimate traffic. I think more important is the real-world examples, what's observed. Now, again, we have 3 existing senior-only housing developments in the town. And basically, they've been around for a while, so you can see the years completed on Windmill 1, Windmill 2, and St. Michael's, and provided there are the number of units too. But Windmill 1 has been around for 37 years, almost 4 decades. Windmill 2 has been around for 22 years. Now, it's interesting because Windmill 1 and Windmill 2, the entrances to these two facilities are on the same road, and they're about 700 feet away from each other. So all that traffic, is going out onto Accabonac Road in close proximity to one another. I drive down Accabonac Road past these developments every day. I've worked for the town for quite some time. I've done that for quite some time. I have never seen or really heard of any major issues that have developed from the volume of traffic that's coming out of these developments. So I don't think there's any problem. Maybe after this discussion, there'll be public comment that's to the contrary. But I think that's very telling that you have two developments, each of which have been in existence for at least 2 decades, Windmill 1 almost twice that, that have not contributed a significant amount of traffic or created problems. And the same goes for our newest senior-only affordable housing development, which is St. Michael's in Amagansett on Montauk Highway. Obviously, Montauk Highway is a mess, especially during the summer, but I don't think the volume of traffic coming out of St. Michael's is anywhere near a substantial, contributor to that. So I think if you look at the real-life examples that we have rather than hypothetical numbers that are used to generate estimates, we don't have a problem coming to traffic coming from the density of our existing housing developments. So another important thing to consider, though, is what would be the increase townwide in the total number of senior housing units if you do, as I'm recommending and advocating here, switch from 8 units per acre to 12 units per acre for senior-only housing developments. So you have to look at potential new developments and then redevelopment or expansion of existing developments. Now, what I did here is I broke this down into 2 columns. New developments, again, I'll say this later in the presentation, but can only occur within the Affordable Housing Overlay District. That's important. I'll get to it. But this board has jurisdiction over where that designation goes. Right now, though, we only have 3 individual sites. I won't say lots because a couple of them are a combination of lots, but 3 sites that are vacant and have the AHO. Those are what I would call the Route 114 property, which I'll say it now, but I'll say it again. The town already has an intention. The supervisor has presented that on numerous occasions to develop that not as a senior housing development. It'll be a standard affordable housing development. I mention it here because it should be considered when you're changing the code because things could change, but I don't think that there's any plan to change that. So it really is somewhat moot to the conversation of a code change that affects only senior housing developments. But we mentioned it here to be comprehensive. The Amagansett Fire Department property also is zoned AHO. It's a combination of lots. Obviously, there's the firehouse there. There's also a residence there. But there is vacant space on that property that could, in theory, be developed. And it's one of the few properties in town that has the AHO designation. The other is 350 Panago Road, which is right down the road here, and is the old Stearns department store property. That is vacant and has the AHO as well. So again, we only have 3 existing senior-only housing developments. Those are Windmill 1, Windmill 2, and St. Michael's. What I haven't given for you in the information that I prepared is an estimate of the redevelopment potential of all existing developed properties with an AHO designation, all of which are developed with non-senior affordable housing developments. I don't think it's very realistic to assume that those developments are just going to change to senior housing. There's a lot of limitations there that really preclude that as a realistic example. Those projects, when they get funding and investors, are really set up for a certain lifespan so that they can recoup the initial investment during the course of the life of the project. All those units are occupied, so there's logistical problems with converting those to senior only, and then by effect, you would probably need to evict or, kick everybody out that's not senior. I don't think anybody has any intentions of doing that. So, basically, I didn't provide that information for you here. I don't think it's very realistic that the existing non-senior affordable housing developments throughout the town are all going to be converted to senior housing. I will say that right now we have 197 units total that would fall into that category. If you change the code by changing the maximum permitted density by 150%, 8 units to 12 units. That would result in a theoretical maximum of 295 units throughout the town, or an additional 98. Again, I don't think that's even realistic, but I point it out there just as a point of interest, because it's the sort of the one scenario that's left out of this slide and the information that I provided to you. So this is a little difficult to see as a slide. I apologize for that, but I wanted to give you some basic information here. This is basically those 6 properties, again, 3 that are vacant and within the AHO, 3 that are already developed as senior housing developments, and what their theoretical maximum additional number of units would be if you did change the code to permit 12 units per acre. You'll see 114, tough to read here again, but basically the bottom line there is that this code change could facilitate a difference in an additional 9 units. Again, though, there's no intention to develop Route 114 as a senior-only housing development, so somewhat moot. Amagansett Fire Department also, in theory, at 8 units per acre of density, could get up to the theoretical maximum is 64 units, because they have about 8 acres and 8 units per acre. However, there's a limitation in the town code that we have no intention of changing, which is a maximum of 60 units per any one site. So you can't do 64. The maximums you can do is 60. If you change the code and the fire department in the future wanted to do a senior housing development, and now the effective limitation is 12 units per acre, they'd still be capped at 60. Even though you do the math, it would be 96 units. You can't go over 60. So there is no difference there. As far as 350 Panago Road goes, the change there right now, it's a smaller property, so it would be permitted 32 units. If you change the code and that was developed as a senior housing development, it would be 48. The difference is 16. So I think if you did this code change, as it stands today with the extent of the AHO development, the change in additional units you could get for new developments would be plus 16. Without going into as much detail for the existing developments, but same idea, same calculation. First of all, I apologize. I noticed that the PowerPoint that went up online didn't have a number for Windmill 1, but the bottom line number is that they could do an additional 20 units. That actually, when you look at the bottom, the totals, the math adds up there. You could kind of do the subtraction, but it was left off. That's 20 units. Windmill 2 could do an additional 13 units, and St. Michael's also could, in theory, add 20 units. So basically, the maximum number, the theoretical maximum number of additional units in existing developments that this would facilitate would be 53, which is 42% more than the existing stock. So kind of reiterating here, again, as far as vacant, non-developed properties that have the AHO, you could get an additional 16 units if you change the code in this way. However, the expansion of existing facilities could result in 53 units. Now, that being said, Windmill 1, I have been discussing this with them for a number of months. If they're looking to expand their facility, but they are very constrained, and I believe Windmill 2 is as well, and St. Michael's is, by sort of the fact that when these developments are built and planned out, they're not really planned out with, confined to one side of the property and then a bunch of it left empty so that for future expansion. They're developed as one site really to be at the density that they're at. And as a result, many times, and specifically for Windmill 1, this is the case, the planning board during site plan review will require scenic easements and things that sort of, contain that development as necessary. Windmill 1 has a very substantial scenic easement that skirts around the entirety of the perimeter of that property. St. Michael's is a very irregular shaped lot. And then, just the way that those facilities are laid out, I probably should have included an aerial here of those properties so you could see it because it illustrates it better. But basically, I don't think it's realistic at all to assume that that maximum theoretical number of 53 units across those three sites is realistically possible. You're probably looking at something more like 40 if everything falls into place and there's a perfect design using the existing site. But more important than that is any of that is going to have to go through site plan review anyway, just like that facility did when it was originally built. We have dimensional regulations in the town code, total lot coverage, setbacks. All of that stuff is going to further limit what the maximum redevelopment potential of our existing senior-only affordable housing developments is. So I highlight that just to say that, I don't think this change as far as the existing developments that we have is going to cause, a significant number of additional housing units that's going to generate a ton of traffic or anything like that for those sites. Although with those sites, again, as I said in an earlier slide, they've been around for many decades. They are appropriate locations for affordable housing developments. If you could get an additional 12 units in one development, 12 units in another, in an area on a development that has already not shown any problems with traffic. That's a great way to get to maybe about an additional 40 units, which, again, Windmill 1 is 40 units, St. Michael's is 40 units. You're giving the opportunity to these developments to go and get site plan approval in front of the planning board, have their project vetted, and maybe the result of it would be getting what is a number of units that is equal to if we got an entirely new development within the town. I think that makes sense. We want to see new developments for senior housing throughout the town, but if you have existing locations where it makes sense, it has worked, it has not caused problems, in the neighborhood or detriment to the character of the neighborhood, if you can do a code change that would facilitate a little bit more on those sites and it's properly vetted by your planning board, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. So these are the, really there's only two subsections of the special permit standards for an affordable housing development as far as code changes of amendments that would need to be made. I can work with the town attorney's office on the specific wording, provided the town board wants to move forward with it, but it's a relatively easy change to the code, and it's basically isolated just to the special permit standards for an affordable housing complex. And again, we don't have a differentiation of use between senior-only and non-senior affordable housing developments. So I'm getting close to the end here, but as far as if there is fear of the increased density that this could result in, there's continuing requirements and restrictions. I already mentioned a bunch of them. Affordable housing developments are only permitted on properties that are within the affordable housing overlay district. There are only 3 sites right now that are vacant and have such designation. Also, that designation is controlled entirely by the town board. If there are going to be additional properties that are going to have the AHO, it has to come in front of the town board, has to have a public hearing, has to be vetted before that designation is even put on, and a senior housing development as opposed to a non-senior one could even be considered. Again, new senior housing developments, and I differentiate here between new affordable housing developments for seniors or any, would need site plan special permit approval from the planning board, but then additional units on existing affordable housing developments would also require site plan approval, and it might even need a second special permit to be granted if it's deemed a substantial expansion, which is an increase over 50% of density. That almost can't happen because we're talking about adding an additional 50% of intensity of use, going from 8 to 12. But that would be required in that situation. And then again, the planning board has to apply its site plan standards to any of these developments. They're required to review it in the context of SECRA as well. So, it's not as though this is something where the town board can just amend the code and then existing developments can go out and just get a building permit and start doing it. There's a process of vetting such applications. So,
I think I would make one other point on this
Yeah.
slide, Eric, is that in order for an AHO to be designated, the property has to be 3 acres or more.
yes, yep. Yeah, I should mention that too. There's a number of, applicable dimensional requirements for designating an AHO. They are somewhat at the discretion of the town board. They're laid out in the comprehensive plan, but it's supposed to be near public transportation, has to have public water. That's also a requirement besides the minimum lot area that you really can't vary because the water authority requires it and the health department requires it, more importantly. So yeah, it's not even, it's a good point. It's not as though you could have, a little postage stamp lot and say, we're putting the AHO on this. It has to be a substantially sized property. So basically, in summary, the key points here, I think I demonstrated that there is a need for a significant number of senior-only affordable housing units. This change would bring the town code in alignment with what the health department would otherwise permit. Senior-only affordable housing units generate a relatively low number of vehicular trips compared to standard apartment units and even single-family residences. The existing senior-only housing developments have not created significant traffic issues in the decades since they were built. There is no potential for a significant and an overwhelming number of additional affordable housing units by redevelopment of the existing senior developments. And I guess, that's one of those things where you could say, well, why are you doing this if you're not going to get a significant amount? The idea here isn't to change the code in a way that's going to have a gigantic impact on these existing developments. The benefit is by letting them do a little bit more, that is only a little bit more in terms of additional traffic. You can get an aggregate, like I said, we might be able to get an aggregate on those existing developments of additional housing units that's equal to, the number of housing units that would be in a new development. Why not do that in places where that land use has already made sense? And then again, I'm reiterating here, you still need to go through site plan review, and the town board still controls the AHO designation. So although I think this does provide a good opportunity for the existing developments to add some additional units, I think maybe the biggest benefit here is a new development that might come in the future. The town board might be considering additional properties to add the AHO on in the coming months. As we all know, land is scarce. That's the main difficulty with that. But if there is a new larger parcel that does want to do a senior-only affordable housing development, and there is no problem with having them, no functional problem to traffic groundwater, with having them be permitted to go up to 12 units per acre, then why limit them at that initial stage? I think it makes sense to get the most out of that property, and particular in light of the scarceness of land and the low number of parcels that we have available to do new developments on. So that is really, those are my main points. Laid out some of the next steps here. Really, I guess for today, really should just focus on 1 and 2. 1 is just when I'm mercifully done speaking in a couple of seconds, you can have a conversation about this. And then second, I would recommend, I do want you to move forward, obviously, on this. And if you are going to do so, the town board should be lead agency. You're really the only involved agency, and should declare lead agency status on it. But the rest here are the steps that of holding a public hearing, considering public comment, doing an environmental assessment under SECRA. But the first step here is for me to shut up and you to have a conversation about it. But
I have one question for you. You mentioned that that sewage treatment makes some of the septic flow moot. So are you suggesting that a sewage treatment plant be part of allowing the more density?
no, only because it's uncommon, and it has, well, I shouldn't even say that, but there is a possibility of you could have a smaller parcel. Let's say you had just that 3-acre parcel, which is the minimum for AHO. In theory, you could do 36 units under 12 units per acre. The health department would allow you to do that by using transfer of development rights. We prefer to see sewage treatment plants built. There's kind of a question of sort of an economy of scale there where, once you start to go below 40 units, it becomes less cost effective to have that upfront cost of doing sewage treatment. I will say, too, another good example of this is St. Michael's. St. Michael's does not have a sewage treatment facility. We use TDR, and I kind of don't like the term TDR because it can be used in other municipalities for things that are not related to affordable housing. In our municipality, our TDR program is called the Affordable Housing Credit Program. It's Chapter 250 of the Town Code. We only use the TDRs for affordable housing projects. We don't use them for example, retail development or anything like that. But St. Michael's was developed taking a open space parcel in the actually in the Spring School District. We transferred out, but generally it's in the same school district. But we took a open space parcel, sterilized it as far as future sanitary flow, and transferred that to the St. Michael's property to facilitate that affordable housing development. So that option is still out there. I would like to leave that option out there if it is needed. But, it's a good point, and that's something that could be considered of, is there, first of all, do you want to say, if you're going to go above 8 units per acre, you must do sewage treatment? I think that also limits for example, St. Michael's doesn't have a sewage treatment facility. What if this code change facilitated them doing an additional 10 units? They're not going to build a sewage treatment plant for that. At least that wouldn't be their, financially, I'm sure they wouldn't start off with that. Obviously, that's something that the town board could require as a condition of if you're going to get this increased density. So that is something that maybe you should consider. I would like to leave the option open for those housing developments to use TDR. Again, they have to do it within the restrictions that the health department imposes. But I feel like if they can meet the health department requirement as far as the sanitary flow that they're generating without a sewage treatment plant, I don't think that we should require them to do it. That being said, I do certainly understand the benefit of everything having sewage treatment.
Thank you.
So I'm supportive of this for senior housing, but I really don't know. I really would like to look at it for all our AHOs, with the knowledge that you might not be able to get the max amount of numbers on a property based on site conditions and through the planning and permitting phase on it then too. It just makes more sense to me to do all the properties AHOs, go to 12 and see what happens then, because knowing you might not be able to get all 12 on a site because of the site conditions.
Yep. Yeah, and that is not.
But the conversation being for senior housing, I'm prepared. I would like to see that move forward also.
Yep. We'll get that. It's not hard to get, and it's certainly reasonable. It makes sense.
Yeah, Dave, I'm not going to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have this conversation. And I do want to acknowledge Eric too. I think you've worked very hard on this topic and other housing topics, and the town is lucky to have you. You're thoughtful about it, and willing to explore different options to solve a really significant problem. And it's been a privilege for me to be a liaison to your department and work with you on these things. Look, this is a significant change, but we have a real problem, a significant problem, and I think that we need to get serious about doing something. And this is something that I think is at least worthy of public discussion as a way to get more much-needed senior housing. I'm looking forward to hearing public comments about, potential issues. I think that, but I do think this is an important step because obviously by allowing more units, you're incentivizing development for this purpose. You know, it's a cost savings. You're getting 50% more units in the same space, which has obvious economic implications. And again, the housing need here, senior housing, has become very, very clear in the senior center discussions, and just anybody who's paying attention to anything at all knows it's something we need. And I think we're not being overrun with developments, and so we have to do something as a board, as a town, to try to encourage this. And I agree with Dave that it could go beyond that. I think the town is doing great things with ADU. As a tool, you know, to incentivize public or private development, not just traditional affordable housing or senior developments. And I think we have to explore all of these options. There's obviously concerns that, as you highlighted, you know, water quality and environmental concerns. But, you know, the health department, that's their territory. If people comply, then great. And as you point out, I think importantly, most larger developments are going towards treatment plants, in which case that, you know, a functioning treatment plant and that issue goes away. Essentially. I mean, there's environmental concerns still, but water quality is very mitigated. Traffic is a concern, but each project is going to need to be looked at by the planning board anyway. And so this move that we're contemplating doesn't mean that there's going to be traffic problems. And I think you did a good job of illustrating why senior traffic is not a major issue. I think the community character is you know, an important concern as well, obviously, but you know, a lack of places for seniors to live in our town is a problem with our community character. And again, I think that we can expand that to affordability, you know, affordable housing in general, housing for essential workers and workforce and emergency services. Anecdotally, at least, the fire departments I know are having a hard time housing people that we need to provide emergency services. That's separate than senior housing, of course, but I think that, you know, this is part of a problem that is much, much bigger. I think importantly, the cap remaining at 60, and you highlighted this in your slide, but it's an important point of emphasis that it doesn't mean we're going to have these massive developments. In fact, the largest development possible in town today would be the same after this happened. And I think that is important because we are still at least a semi-rural area, and we don't want to have these behemoth, you know, developments. This just allows for more units to be put up in more situations to address a serious need. Again, I look forward to hearing, you know, vetting this. I don't think this is something that we do willy-nilly, but the first step is to talk about it, and, you know, maybe it changes over time. I do think that you highlighted the Department of Health changes that sort of laid the map for this. The town was in sync with them when we made these rules, and things have changed in the health department. And again, I think that health department changes and treatment plants could maybe even expand and have us look at other affordable housing density issues. You know, I just want to wrap up to say, again, I'm very excited to have the conversation. I'm at least initially supportive because I know what a need we have. And I think there's some real valid concerns that we're going to hear and I want to hear. But you know, frankly, I'm not worried about our town being overrun with affordable housing or senior housing. And so I think we have to take a little bit of a risk to get serious about, you know, solving an issue I think everybody has acknowledged. So yeah, thanks again for this, and I look forward to continue the discussion.
Thank you. And you know what, I should have, Kate, when you had mentioned sewage treatment, but brought up the topic, I should have mentioned too, somewhat goes without saying, but I probably should say it, is that even if there is not a true sewage treatment plant in one of these developments, anything that alters generated sanitary flow will require an update to, at the very least, a low nitrogen sanitary system, you know, as required on any other property throughout the town. So, you know, it's not as though you'd be allowed to add new units and there would be no form of treatment of the effluent. They would have to have a modernized low nitrogen system. So not as good as a sewage treatment plant, but further
What's there?
denitrification.
Yeah, I think that's an important element to highlight.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I don't have further questions, but I absolutely support this for all the reasons that were stated by David and Ian. And again, well, I could definitely look for adding this type of density with these conditions to or affordable housing developments in general. We talk about fire departments and all essential workers. But everywhere you go in town, I went to the vet's office yesterday, and they can't get another vet in because there's no support staff. It is something I hear, staffing is an issue that we well know in the town, and something I hear everywhere I go across the board. And we need to address that so that we do keep our community character. So I'm supportive.
So I'm supportive as well. I think for senior housing, it's really low-hanging fruit, making that change, going from 8 units per acre to 12 units per acre. And it's really interesting how things have shifted. I was on the board when we first started, the conversation started with the Georgia Green Ventures and the project on 3 Mile Harbor. They could have done 60 units, and at the time, the sentiment was, we're not giving you more than 50. And I will say, though, that, I'm the liaison to the East Hampton CAC. There is concern about the 50 units there because of the traffic and whatnot and the development that's happening along 3 Mile Harbor. So obviously, it's a balance, and that's why, the planning board, this will go before the planning board, and it'll be vetted. But for the senior piece, I'm there. But board members have brought up today other affordable housing projects. If we move forward with this, we could notice it for public hearing on the 18th and hear it in the beginning of May. I don't know if this requires a longer.
I think, if I may make
Yeah.
a suggestion, because I didn't know where this conversation was going to go, and David brought up a very good point about, what are the estimates? What's the increased, housing unit density you could get on those other developments, which I get, left out of this, the documentation that I prepared for you. Why don't I do that and crunch those numbers? I'll also reach out to planning and send the concept over to Jeremy Samuelson and get his comments on it. We'll also specifically bring up, and more for planning, the concept of, or the question of, do we want to condition or, reword the code change to include a requirement to do sewage treatment, and get their thoughts on that. I'll bring those, I'll crunch the numbers, I'll send it over to planning, you can get comments from them, and then we'll bring that information back to you, and then maybe at that time you can discuss whether or not you're ready for a public hearing.
Okay.
Or if you need additional information, because at that point, before scheduling a public hearing, you would want to adopt an EAF and make a secret declaration. So that additional information, you need to do that. So why don't we go and get that? We'll get that additional stuff for you. We'll prepare an environmental assessment form. And, from there, you could decide if that's adequate, and then we'll go for a public hearing.
I would appreciate that flexibility. Yeah, I think that's more appropriate as a global look to affordable housing on there, because again, we're now matching what's allowed by the county. And again, there's going to be site constraints also. But yes, I'd be favor. Thank you, Kathy.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to talk about the other affordable housing issues as well outside of senior, and I have discussed that with Eric and would love to bring that before the board sometime, but I don't want to derail this because I think as a standalone, it's certainly worthwhile. But we have housing problems. Let's do something.
Sure.
All right. Now you get to switch gears and
Sure.
you have a second presentation for us.
Okay. This is a somewhat less complicated subject, but the community development block grants, which are, originally initiate with HUD. They go through the Suffolk County Consortium group and are distributed to local municipalities, including us, for a variety of programs. Over the years, and generally every year we get about $120,000 worth of grants from the county. Yeah, now it's okay. Yeah, thank you. So just as an example, actually, could you go up one slide? Thank you. As an example of eligible activities, we use them for rehabbing affordable homes, public park improvements, eliminating physical barriers for the handicapped. There's a wide range of projects that, the town board has adopted over the years. We usually have this conversation, just like we did last year, in the fall. And then, so late in the year, we'll be doing that again late this year, and discussing the projects that will be adopted for 2025 and moving forward. But this past year, or the projects for this year, on the third slide, you'll see is, so this is what was adopted for this year, just giving you a reminder. We give money to Maureen's Haven, the homeless shelter. Windmill Village 2 had a project, but I'm just reminding you here of the projects that were adopted for this year. What we have is sort of a usual process of administering these funds. As you could see on those numbers, we might give $70,000 for one project. Obviously, the project's not going to cost exactly $70,000. So a lot of times there's extra money left over from those projects that we still can use. We can take them and move them to another worthy project. Sometimes the county actually has money left over from other municipalities' projects where that happened, and then they'll make them available to us. For the most part, the budget modifications we're discussing here today are extra money that was left over from other projects. So specifically, this is the summary of extra money that we have left over and where we would like to move it. What you'll see here are, these are in the first column there, that's the original project. All of these date back at least about 3 years. So they're projects that were approved, funded, built, done, and then there was money left over or there was a problem. So one of them is the Whalebone Village curb cuts, originally $32,000. There was about $9,000 left. What we would like to do is take that money and move it to a 2023 ADA rehab. You'll see with most of these projects here, or what we've tried to do, I should say, is, and at least for the first two, is keep the recipient the same organization and ideally, sort of the same concept of a project. So first row there, we have money left over from a project that gave money to Whalebone Village. We're looking to just reappropriate it to a new project on the same property. Same kind of goes for the second one, the East Hampton Housing Authority solar panels. We gave money in 2021 for solar panels on the Avalon Apartments in Montauk. They're following up with that. They needed to build to put a generator on site for those panels. That's a new project. It wasn't anticipated when they originally applied for money. So we have a tiny bit of money there, almost $60, but it makes sense rather than lose it, to reappropriate it for kind of finishing that project, even though it's identified as a separate project. The other one here that is interesting is the food pantry. Now, obviously, the town board gives money to the food pantry on an annual basis, has for a while. We had, for a number of years through CDBG, been giving about $5,000 a year to the food pantry. The problem with that is, and when Linda Norris, my assistant director, and myself and some other staff went to the county consortium meeting about a month ago, all of the local municipalities all voiced this concern because they're all limited by this governing restriction. Any public service, and that's what this falls into, so it's not for a specific project. It's basically, here's an organization that provides a public service. We're going to give them.
That wasn't for like a walk-in or refrigeration or anything?
No, it wasn't.
David, in 2019?
Yeah, no. But basically, when you have a public service, the county, because this is something that HUD wants, requires that public service organization have pretty detailed records of the demographics of the people that they serve. So that's been a problem, and I heard the same problem mirrored from the other local municipalities of, well, our food pantry doesn't hand out a census questionnaire to the people that come in and need relief and need help and need help with putting food on the table. It's a difficult thing to bring up to somebody that's coming there. It's something that they don't really want to supply. So many food pantries have this problem where, you can't say, here's some food to help you out, and could you fill out this questionnaire? So it's a difficult thing. We're discussing it with County Economic Development Department. They're going back to HUD. I think a bunch of the local municipalities are going to put a letter that we're going to endorse and send to HUD and say, can you consider changing this requirement for local food pantries? But basically, that's a somewhat new requirement, and we can't give the money to the food pantry. So at least the CDBG money, I should make that distinction. The town board does give money to support the food pantry. So we would like to still give that money that was committed about 5 years ago to them, but we can't right now until that situation is resolved, which I don't expect happening before the fall and when we start talking about the 2025 budgets. The money is sitting there. The county doesn't want to see overages. They don't want to see money laying out there that wasn't spent. They want us to use it for a number of reasons. I think mainly just their own accounting nightmare, because we're not the only local municipality they're giving funding to. But we're proposing to give that to Maureen's Haven to help them out. We've already committed $5,000. This would be an additional to them. And then you'll see 2014 East End Disabilities. We have a voucher or receipt, however you want to phrase it, laying out there for about $60 from 10 years ago. And it was actually for audio recording equipment, not that it really matters, but we never got the required receipts to prove that it was purchased for that purpose. We discussed it, and it was kind of a, let's just drop that. But we're doing a budget modification. We have $60 out there. Why not give it to a public service that needs it and can use it? So we're proposing to give that to Maureen's Haven and, modify the budget in that way. So we think all of these make sense. They're relatively minor budget modifications. But just like when we originally adopt the project list, you would need to schedule a public hearing, hold it, hear public comment, and then adopt a resolution afterward, provided you agree with all this. So we think this is relatively minor. The next and final slide just kind of shows what we anticipate as far as the time frame. And if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask.
I have no questions.
It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, I agree. I have no question.
Yeah, I agree, and I support the changes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
We'll
Eric.
do what needs to be
Thank you,
done.
Eric.
Okay. So now we're going to hear from the Litter Action Committee. You ready for us?
Yes.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And this is a very brief presentation, so we do have a few
So would you like,
slides.
just introduce
Yeah.
yourselves, please?
Chris Ganich and
Tina Plaza.
we're the co-chairs. of
And
the-
with you today?
Yep, Sarah Davison and Hersey Eggington. So we are here as members of the Litter Action Committee, and thank you for giving us this chance to talk about our plans for this year. So wouldn't it be great if all of East Hampton looked like that, litter-free? On the other hand, it doesn't. So that's why the Litter Action Committee was formed last year. It was our first full year. The members are listed below, with a special shout out to Barbara DiLorenzo, who's responsible for the graphics and certainly was involved in every project, and under our liaison, Deputy Supervisor Kate Rogers. That is our tagline, "Don't Trash East Hampton," and those are our three messages. Don't toss litter, secure your load, and if you see litter, pick it up. So the first thing we did was actually Barbara designed signs that address the first two topics, which are behavioral change topics and tough to get to, but we're working on it. That's a don't toss sign, and the next slide is a secure your load sign, and they're in a couple of places around town. Next slide. we quickly learned that partnership is what it's all about, to amplify the message. So here we are in Montauk with, believe it or not, a group called Montauk Trash. So next slide. This is another picture of volunteers and same sort of partnership, that it's a pop-up pickup. We just decide where we're going to go, and we go. Our big event last year, the first event, was our No Fling Spring event, and this is just a listing to show our partners that we developed for that. And Tina will talk more about this in a little bit. Our No Fling Spring event last year started on Springs Fireplace Road, and you can see it involves many different partners. Next. This was our No Fling Spring Fling event, which there were about 100 people there, from the little girls 3 years old there to a few people talking about senior housing. Well, a few people of that age group were there, so that was a fun event. And our event ended with a competition. This was a partnership with Neopolitical Cowgirls, Hampton's International Film Festival, and LTV Studios for a anti-litter PSA competition shown at LTV Studios. And LTV Studios also broadcast the videos throughout the year. Here is our award winner, Francisco Vasquez. And here he is again, because he wrote a script for an anti-litter PSA for WLNG, and he recorded it at the studio. And we also wrote 3 different PSAs which were broadcast on the radio last year. Speaking of which, this year we will be doing the same thing, hopefully getting school kids involved in writing and recording a PSA.
Chris, would you just say how old Francisco is?
Francisco was, I believe he's 12 now, yes. This was actually the East Hampton Cleanup Day, was so designated last year in alignment with National Cleanup Day, which takes place on the 3rd Saturday of September. Again, all the partnerships, all the pickups. We plan to do this again this year. It would be on September 21st. Thank you. Next. Just pictures of a few of the pickups on that day. It was a very successful event and did literally go from Wainscott to Montauk. Next picture, please. A few more pictures of we happy souls trying to keep East Hampton clean. And here we go with our future.
Thank you for having us. As you can see, we're building upon our successes from last year, and this year we're going to be having our second No Fling Spring event. And as Chris highlighted, what we aim to do is build awareness, and part of this is building partnerships with the other groups in town. So you can read down and see we have all of these participating groups: the East Hampton, Sag Harbor CAC, the Spring CAC, our own Litter Action Committee. We have Gurney's at Montauk, the date is to be determined. We have the Peconic Land Trust, the CCOM, and then we have a few more additions that are going to be added, along with the Acabonic Protection Committee and East Hampton Trails Society and the Wainscott CAC. And now joining on is the Lazy Point Association and the East Hampton Trustees. And in addition to that, the Montauk CAC, and we're going to have a very interesting closing event, which will be the East Hampton Litter Action Committee and the Spring CAC again, meeting at Louse Point. And we're going to add another touch to this. We're going to call it No Fling Spring and Road Safety, an event to highlight that everyone on all of our roads should be very safe, whether they're picking up trash, walking, or biking. It's a really important aspect to stress. Our other events? Our other events this year, we're going to have a program at the East Hampton Library, and again, it's in conjunction with the Concerned Citizens of Montauk and the Academic Protection Committee, and there's going to be a screening of the story of plastics. And in addition, what it doesn't say here, there's going to be a discussion by the surf riders. So again, to illustrate, we're trying to bring all of these groups together and bring awareness to the whole town. Next. And our second annual No Fling Spring Dance Party, which is really a hoot. If you look again at that slide of it, you see the ages and the spread, and everybody had such a good time last year. Everybody was dancing, talking, visiting. It was a true community event. One of our main initiatives for this year is to work with the Highway Department to re-energize the Adopt a Road program. If everyone could be responsible for their own road, what a difference it would make. What if everyone picked up just one piece of litter? It takes all of us to make a difference. Our motto, see litter, pick it up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's just, I'll just comment that it's remarkable that this is your all of second year of action. And I think when you see how many groups join in for these cleanups and want to do something, there's a lot of people in our town that want to keep it beautiful and put the trash where it belongs. And I think bringing everybody together is essential for your messaging, and it's a great plan. So thank you so much for all that you do.
And how do people sign up if they want to participate, or they want another, or they share a group that wants to be involved?
You can address that. How do they?
Oh, come up to the podium, please. Thanks, Tina.
Oh, thank you. Good question. Moving forward, it's going to be on the town website, on the homepage. There's going to be a banner with all of the events, and we'll be updating this because, as you could tell, as people are hearing about it, we sent out an initial letter and people responded, but then there's always, hey, I want to do that too. And so Kate and Anne Marie and Nina are helping us keep that up to date. We're going to have a press release that will be an announcement. We are a press committee of one. We'll contact the Star, and they usually put it in the town blurb, the village blurb, and there'll be letters to the editor. And it's up to us to spread the word. And then, of course, each group, a main reason for bringing in all the groups is they have their own distribution list, and they pull in their members. So it's kind of like, you know, a web that starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as Kate said, that's the only way we can really build awareness, is spreading it all out and letting everybody own a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina. And if you're interested, please call my office at 631-324-2621. And we're happy to give out the information as well.
Yeah, just want to echo Kate's comments. Thank you very much for your efforts. It's obviously important work, and it's appreciated.
And it's noticed.
Yeah.
It's completely noticed right now.
Thank you so
you.
much.
Okay, so we can move on now to liaison reports.
That's me.
That's you.
Okay, so want to let everyone know that the recreational department is currently hiring seasonal lifeguards and also recreational aides. If anyone has any interest in working with the town of East Hampton in either of those positions, or also in buildings and grounds for summer staff, please contact those departments or our town's human resource department at 631-324-4141. Want to let everyone know that the Wainscot Green gazebo installation will be occurring next week, weather dependent. That is a donation from the Friends of George Capond and others in the Wainscot community for a gazebo that is being planned there. Keeping it pretty simple and easy. We're moving forward with Eddie Schnell. The security camera installations at many of our facilities are starting to happen, starting from Montauk, heading east right now. I can give the town board more information as we move forward. And lastly, I know the supervisor was there also, but I want to thank the East Hampton Little League for such a wonderful opening day. It was a little chilly. They didn't get the sun everyone wanted, but they definitely got a lot of laughs. So thank you very much to the community. And that's all I have today.
Great, thank you, David. Kate?
Yes, on Saturday morning, the Wainscot CAC met in the chapel, and there was a guest presentation by David Egan from the Wainscot School Board, who talked about the upcoming budget vote, and he had a lot of details on last year to this year, and the request was, please vote. And I think we can say that across the board for everything. It's imperative that everybody takes the time out to go and make sure their voice is heard through voting on these issues. As the Wainscot CAC was very appreciative of the outreach by Kathy to Fred Thiel and taking care of that drainage issue. It was 368 Montauk Highway by Home Goods. That was very well received and very much appreciated. Traffic and traffic calming is a very important topic to the Wainscot folks. As you know, the back roads are, well, used to be unknown cut arounds the highway, but of course with navigation today, they're extremely well known. And they were, I let them know and gave them the information from both the police report on speeding and also the police annual report. And they were very interested in continuing the subcommittee work through Jose Arandia, and who has worked with David to bring the priorities for stop signs to the board. It's not easy, as you know, to everybody think, you know, to whittle down a stop sign on every corner to the top priorities was a topic of discussion. And because that group was formed, there were members of the community who came to the meeting specifically to talk about what they witness in their area with speeding and having to jump out of the way of speeding cars that are not slowing down through the hamlet. So they are having ongoing discussions and on the process and prioritization of the recommendations from the Traffic Calming Committee. We talked about that we received the $2.75 million, half of the Wainscot dedicated from the South Fork Wind Farm. We went over what the agreement said, that it has no restrictions on how it is used. And I brought the message from the town board that we would like to develop an outreach program to the folks who live in Wainscot for how we will determine how we spend this funding in Wainscot, and a subcommittee is formed to be able to define how we should outreach. That was the gist of the discussions. There's an interesting topic that came up through folks that came in with an issue, and they have a driveway that is bordered by a reserve from a subdivision in the 80s, and an HOA was formed, and that corporation was filed with the state, although we can't find any existence of that corporation now or those folks. So that's a question that we may want to talk about. I went to Scott Wilson. He said this does happen where HOAs are created, but they're non-existent and non-functioning. And so what does that mean for because they are town-owned reserve areas, but they are deeded, they are filed with the state that the HOA is responsible for the maintenance. So that's a topic that I haven't had in front of us before, but with what's happening with all the trees coming down to the southern pine beetle, it was an issue that's of great concern, as all the deforestation is to the folks in Wainscot. That's all I have from the CAC.
Ian?
Yeah, we met with a group from Springs and the Parsons Blacksmith Shop on Saturday for a cleanup. Anybody who hasn't been to that building, it's beautiful. It's typically locked, but it's a real, architectural beauty and historic beauty. I participated in that cleanup, but basically the goal there is there's been a lot of stuff stored there over the years, some that's original to the time and to the blacksmithing purpose, other stuff that has sort of been stored there. We're trying to clean it up to have more blacksmithing events throughout the summer and a more open building. There are some things there that might be more appropriate for the Farm Museum or the Marine Museum, and we're helping to sort of declutter it to just make it more available to the public. And again, it's a very beautiful building, and I highly recommend that people go. The opening day for that will be May 25th, which is a Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, and there'll be blacksmiths there, and I'd encourage everybody to go. Also met with the Maidstone Park Committee. There's a playgrounds, Maidstone Playground Committee, rather. There's a preschool playground there with only sort of one unit. There's funding in the budget for it. This has been going on for a little while, but we are starting to lay out a design, pick out equipment for that area, and come up with ideas. So if anybody is familiar with that playground or uses it, again, the goal is to gear it towards preschool age students, which is a lacking, I think, service or need that we have in town. And that is in process. So anybody who's interested, reach out to me, please. Hopefully I'll have something more concrete to bring to the board in the coming weeks. And we can get that project done.
Great, thank you. So Tom Flight had sent me a couple weeks ago some questions from his Amagansett CAC subcommittee on the new senior center. And, we went to work on answering those questions and then realized that there are a number of other questions out there that folks have been coming forth with. So we put together a frequently asked questions. There's close to 30 questions that have been answered. We can add to it as needed, but we just thought that we wanted to get the conversation going. That's been posted on the town website under, if you go to current projects at the bottom of the homepage, there's a tab for new senior center. And if you click on that, you'll find all the documents about the new senior center. And at the top of that list is the FAQs. So I encourage people who have any questions, if they want to take a look at that, and if they have anything else they want to contribute, to please reach out to my office at 631-324-4140. And now, David, I have to ask you the question, do you know what tomorrow is? Because you asked me on Thursday about Saturday.
Tomorrow's April 10th. I think there was a resolution on for someone being hired tomorrow. What am I missing?
What you're missing is that tomorrow is our 100th day in office with the new administration.
That's what it was.
So we issued a press release earlier this morning where we just kind of laid out some of the work what we've been up to over the last 100 days. And
Feels like more than that.
yeah, well, a couple of storms, throw in FIMP, ditch planes, trying to solve the affordable housing crisis out here. And but no, there's been a lot of great projects that we've made a lot of progress on in a very short period of time. The way the press release breaks it out is we had set out at the State of the Town at the organizational meeting that we looked at that having 3 key goals: preserving our community, investing in our future, and modernizing how town government operates. And so, we've made progress on Cantwell Court. They've cleared for the road. We're going to have a resolution today to approve the water main extension. And I know we'll, in a few short weeks, we'll be discussing, how we go out for RFP.
Yep.
For builders for those 16 single-family homes.
Like that, and I talked to Mr. Cantwell. I'd like to try to do our shovel breaking, start groundbreaking when he gets back in early May.
Awesome.
Just to let everyone know.
That's great. And I know we've been talking about ADUs, and Eric brought it up today, that he's been working with the Community Development Long Island on a program to get funding for families to build residential accessory dwelling units. We took the Governor Hochul's New York State Pro-Housing Pledge. We've made tremendous progress on the Montauk Playhouse. From what I understand, did they show up yesterday?
I think the office container came out there, the temporary construction storage trailer came out there this weekend. It was there on Sunday. So yeah, they're full steam ahead right now.
And that was a project we thought we were going to have to do in 2 phases, the Aquatic Center and then the Multipurpose Cultural Center. And when the numbers came in, the foundation raised additional funding, the town put in additional monies so that we could get it all done at once.
You've done a very good job on that, Kathy. Get in
Yeah,
there.
I would just
all
like
of
to
us.
also say that, thank you for putting this together so that, we could take a look back so far and think, wow, it's only been 100 days after you read this. And what I'd like to do is to thank all of you. And Tom, I wish you were here for the thank you, for how great it is to work with all of you. We don't always agree. We can go back and forth, but I think that in the first 100 days, what I've seen from everyone, if I may make this observation, is that we all really have our hearts in the right place and care about our community and we want to make the changes that help folks. And that's what I think you can see in this. The second part of that is how important our staff is and how much, when you see lists like this, I can't emphasize enough how much the entire staff of the town works on these issues. So I want to thank them as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, we as a board want to do everything we can to encourage the staff to keep doing what they do and buy into the love of community and work hard as they always do for positive change. And I think that extends even to the community members. What I've seen working with my group in Springs, or not my group, but the group in Springs who, have been there doing things for a long time. We see it with the Litter Action Committee. And that's what's so lovely about our town. So.
Yes, I think that we are blessed with the
we-
community engagement we have.
Yeah,
We very much are.
folks show up.
And then not to backtrack, Kathy, but on the affordable housing thing, that's something obviously I'm very, very passionate about. I think another exciting development is the Community Housing Fund. And we haven't released the RFA for that yet, but there's been really positive developments, and in the coming weeks, we'll see more from that. And I just think that that's
Yeah.
a real notable change.
It's my understanding, Ian, that they're going to be coming to the next meeting.
Great.
So it didn't really make it under the 100-day cutoff.
I know, but I'm trying to cheat.
101 day.
The work, to the earlier point, a lot of work has been going on from town staff and this very involved committee. So maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit,
Yeah.
but
No, I think
Stuff's
it's
happening.
great to point that out because that also brings us to some of the projects that are ongoing here. It's not that we've completed these. Ditch Plains, where we just closed out the RFP. We have the committee form, evaluation committee form, and we're going to get that work done as soon as possible, and we continue to work on that as well. So that isn't finished, and as Ian pointed out, many of these things are ongoing for us.
Yeah, and I think some of, because people ask me, what's it like to be supervisor, or what do you think? And I think that, we have a tremendous team in place. My colleagues on the board, our staff, we appointed, first time in town history, a town administrator, a public information officer. The town attorney's office is fully staffed with 6 full-time town attorneys and 1 part-time town attorney, and now we're just created a critical position, the Intergovernmental Relations Coordinator, who's going to help us, obtain federal and state funding, because we know there's a lot of money out there, and we really needed, somebody there to drive that ship. So that's an exciting opportunity as well.
There's this new appointment of a town council member named Ian.
Yeah,
Out of
yeah.
Piedmont, sort of working out pretty well,
Right.
working hard, Ian. As
Threw him right
you
in
said-
there.
You said immediately when you came on, it's going to be a pleasure working with you. I still stand right
Yep.
by that. It's been a pleasure working with you also.
no, the pleasure's all mine, and thank you very much.
We moved town board meetings to Thursday nights so that working folks can participate either in person or remotely. And we're also going to be moving back to having the second meeting in, second town board work session back in Montauk.
Monthly.
Monthly,
Yeah.
right. We're hoping, that the first date will be Tuesday, May 14th, but we're just waiting for confirmation that LTV can get all the equipment in. I guess they're waiting on one camera. But if that gets delivered and can get installed, we'll be back out in Montauk the second Tuesday of every month. So that's, we miss going out there, and further engaging the Montauk community. So.
Yeah, and it's probably not noticeable to the public, but I just also want to talk about how, in terms of modernizing town government, how we, through your leadership, have broken down the silos of departments. And there's so much more cooperation between departments on all topics. So it's not this department or that department working on something, it's multiple departments. And that's evident also in the zoning code amendment work group, having all those department heads working on an issue. It really is helpful to have folks in the field and the folks with the ideas sit at the table to be able to come up with practical solutions and new ways of looking at things. So I think that part that's kind of under the radar is also essential.
Agreed. All right. We have resolutions.
What are you doing for your next 100 days?
Yeah, that was my question.
Okay, so I have, excuse me. It's my honor to offer Resolution 2024-490. This is accept a change order proposal for D&B for the Westlake Montauk Stormwater Project. The proposed change order is for $12,500 for additional cost estimating services and updating engineering estimates to assist in funding request.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
491 is the approved extension of the memorandum of understanding for the Friends of George Capon for the Route 27 rest stop project. This MOU expires on April 30th, 2024, and now be extended to April 30th of 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is a resolution that I tabled at the last meeting that I'd like to untable.
Second.
Resolution 2024-49.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Next, I'd like to reintroduce Resolution 2024-49. This is for a water main extension for Cantwell Court, which is a 16-lot residential subdivision for an affordable housing development. The cost is estimated to be $122,113.45, subject to an adjustment of an additional 10% if the costs exceed the estimate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 2024-488. I'd like to make a motion to untable it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 488 is to retain Dan Ruzzo and Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna LLP as outside environmental counsel for the East Hampton Airport for 2024, as the town requires specialized legal assistance with environmental issues related to the East Hampton Airport. Legal fees to Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna will not exceed $500,000, and consultants AKRF will not exceed $300,000, HMMH $70,000, LKMA $35,000. And I just want to make note that this comes from the airport fund.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
492 is to authorize payment to McKesson. The East Hampton Town Police Department records shows that there's a past due invoice for 2023 for McKesson in the amount of $8,132.07.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
David, could you take Tom's resolution?
Yes, top one, sorry. Yes, 493. This is for a provisional appointment to account clerk. The name's Eileen Hare, and it's been posted from May 16th, 2023 to May 30th, 2023, an hourly rate of $26.19, which is $47,661.25 for a 30-hour work week. 35-hour work week, effective April 9th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
494 is to adopt and amend Chapter 198 Penling to include Stephen Hands Path Recreational Facility. We heard this public hearing on March 7th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
495, there's a notice of bidders for EH 24-012. This is for Stephen Hands Path Recreation Facility Mobile Food Concessionaire. The bid is available April 11th, 2024. The bid is due back April 25th, 2024. Any questions or concerns, please contact our purchasing department, 631-324-4141.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 2024-496 is the appointment of Assistant Town Attorney Nicholas Corsitas. Mr. Corsitas will be admitted to the New York State Bar Association on April 10th, 2024, and we're excited to have him, be our newest Assistant Town Attorney. This is no change in annual salary for a 40-hour work week effective April 10th, 2024 for calendar year 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
497 is to retain John Amartano Esquire and Farrell Fritz as outside secret counsel for 2024, retroactive to January 2nd, at a sum not to exceed $10,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so do we have a motion to go?
Yes.
Any other business, or?
You know.
A motion to go into exec?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for CPF, personnel, advice of counsel, and potential litigation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.